joining us online to really just start with us and lead us into this conversation and the focus that we have on business. She's, of course, also having quite an extensive business experience, a seasoned business leader and presidential advisor, including serving as a former CEO of NAMDEP. Very good morning to you, and thank you very much for making time out to join us this morning.
Good morning, Ricardo, and thank you for having me.
Well, before we get into, I think, issues around policy and business under the leadership of President Nujoma, I just wanted to find out where were you and how did you receive the news of his passing when it was announced?
Thank you very much. I woke up to the news of his passing on Sunday morning when I was searching through the social media, and then I came across the announcement. And obviously, it came as a shock somewhat, but having known that he wasn't well for a while, I reflected on his illustrious careers and his contribution to the country, and decided that we will have to celebrate rather than mourning his departure because he has accomplished his mission.
In terms of encounters with him, when was the first time that you actually met him or had your first encounter with him? Can you perhaps just lay that out for us?
Yes, thank you very much. An encounter with the founding president cannot be said very briefly, but I can say first I met him in exile in Angola, as he was our revered leader and freedom fighter of note. And when I went to Lubango for military training, and we completed our military training, he came for the graduation. And that was the first time I saw him in close proximity. But I didn't have the opportunity to speak to him or to interact with him until after independence, is when I now had the privilege and opportunity to interact with him on a one-on-one basis. Firstly, when I was Director of Mines in the Ministry of Mines and Energy, and then subsequently as the Managing Director of NAMDEP.
And that's what I really wanted to reflect on. I think first, starting off, like you said, it can't be brief to reflect on the first encounter. What did you make of his leadership during that time? I think particularly before independence, you just finished now graduating, and you are ready to get into this big fight for the liberation of your nation. What did you make of his character and his leadership skills or style during the struggle?
He was fiercely motivational. He was focused. He was courageous. He was very visionary, and he had a mission, and he wanted us to buy into that vision and to be committed to it. And that's why every time he spoke to us, he would tell us the next conversation will be on the outskirts of Windhoek. He really had a vision of things that some of us as young people at that time, we didn't see and we didn't visualize how it was going to happen. But he was committed to the mission, and he made sure that he employed everything that he had about him, hearts and soul, in the mission that we had to accomplish.
Well, come independence now, of course, just that focus, I think, and having that outlook on economic independence, we know that during the struggle, it was different priorities from a political perspective, but now the country becomes independent and you need to start running this country now as a state. Talk to us about your early encounters immediately after independence, particularly with the foray into the Directorate of Mines and how his vision really shaped energy security and the security of natural resources in the country.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think the best person qualified to speak to that is Dr. Hangala, because he was then the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Mines. But just looking back into the history of the development of Namibia, going back to its constitution, already in the Constitution, in Article 98, it was very clear that Namibia will have a mixed economy and that all form of business formation will be welcome, public, private, joint venture. And then soon after, in 1992, he came up with the Minerals Mining and Prospecting Act, which sets out the condition on which the licensing of minerals will take place in Namibia. And then, of course, later he focused on the mining industry with the development of the Diamond Act. And one of the key mandates that I got when I was appointed as managing director of NAMDEP was to make sure I go out there and transform this CDM into a national company, and that we should aim towards stopping the extracting and exporting of mineral resources in their raw forms and start adding value locally.
He was quite strong on, this idea around us becoming a self-sufficient and self-sustaining country as well. How strong did that vision come through in terms of the advice, leadership he had provided during the time that you were at NAMDEP?
Well, that was all about sustainability and contribution to the economic development. One of the key realization earlier on in his leadership was that mining and all the businesses will contribute towards the national development agenda. And how that will happen is when we mine responsibly and sustainably and make contribution, not only in terms of contribution to the fiscus, but it's also to the welfare and the well-being of our people and the community around our operations. That the businesses that we are managing and the businesses we are owning, all the businesses that we are managing must be operating in the best interest of everything, really, from environment, environmental protection, environmental management was key, contribution towards the welfare of the community around us, contribution towards training and development of skills that will be required to run our own businesses and to contribute towards the development of the country, and obviously in terms of value addition to the resources that we are managing. So broadly speaking, that was the mission and that was the agenda that we were driving for. And we understood that in the big picture, we had a role to play as a business towards the economic development of the country. And for us to do so, we had to run these businesses sustainably. We had to make profit. We had to pay taxes. We have to pay dividends to our shareholders. We have to invest in local procurement. We have to invest in the development of local businesses through using our procurement muscles to ensure that opportunity are also shared with the small businesses.
In terms of that, I think one of the things I really wanted to also touch on was also the ease of doing business. We know that the founding father was, of course, quite staunch. He always spoke about not having the global West really take advantage of us and doing business on a level playing field, as peers. Reflect a little bit on his ability to be able to balance that need for, benefiting from these natural resources, but at the same time as well balancing it out with the need of creating a conducive environment for private business to flourish and for foreign investment or FDI to, of course, also be able to flow into the country.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we all know, and I'm sure Dr. Hangala will agree with me, as well as BC Wira, that President Nujoma was both a patriot and he was really committed to making sure that he was doing what was in the best interest of Namibia. But at the same time, he was also very pragmatic. And so he was aware of the connection between a thriving business community and the economic benefits that such a thriving business will have on the country. I remember in 2002, he came to open one of Namdeb's mine in Dabras. And as part of his statement, he said, and I want to quote on that one, he said that the continued investment by Namdeb and other businesses in major projects like this one is testimony to the conducive investment framework my government has put in place and continue to uphold since independence. End of quote. So he fully understood, he fundamentally understood the connection between a conducive business environment for business and how that will ultimately benefit the country. And he believed that one of the critical success factors that was required to achieve our national objective was through value addition to our mineral resources. And therefore, he encouraged very strongly the adding value to our mineral resources.
Well, in conclusion, Inge, I think we can really have this conversation for the longest time, but what is the one thing that private businesses can do to continue with this legacy and to build on that as well? Just in conclusion, very briefly from your end.
Yeah, I think what we can do, the business community can do, and we can do as Namibians, and the lessons that we have learned from President Sam Nujoma is to continue to implement his vision for Namibia, and that is Vision 2030. We know it's not far out, but we should strive the very best we can at this time to make sure that we will achieve that vision or we will come closer to it. And we should do so with discipline and focus. And that, President Nujoma was a very disciplined person and very focused and committed to a cause. And when he wanted to pursue that cause, he will pursue it to its ultimate conclusion. And sometimes we will say, this is impossible. But for him, there was nothing that impossible. He believed in doing something. He was a man of vision, but at the same time, unlike in some cases where the leader will scope out the vision, but he will also get down to the actual implementation. He will roll up his sleeves and he will get the work done. And anybody who would try to be theoretical about, we didn't do a feasibility study of this, we needed to do that, that's a waste of time. Let's get on and get the job done. So in honoring his legacy and contribution, we must really make sure that we stand out. We stand up for the values that he believed in. He was a role model for all of us, and we must walk the road that he has shown us to walk in, that of unity, national reconciliation, hard work, and discipline in everything that we do. So that's what I think we should do as Namibians in honoring his legacy.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you very much, Inge, for making time out to talk to us this morning.
Thank you very much.
There we have a presidential advisor, of course, on constitutional matters and the private sector interface, Inge Zaamuani, of course, a seasoned business leader, also reflecting on the time spent at Namdeb as well under the tutelage of the late founding father.